Episode number 34 of Making the Case. The real reasons why men are single. Let's get into it. Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of Making a Case, episode 34. Hey, I'm your host, Dr. Jacob Isom, educator, author, speaker, entrepreneur, a little bit of everything. And as always, I appreciate you for coming back again to watch me do my thing. And for all my new subscribers and all my new watchers, this is Making a Case, where we take a topic or question and I, based on the research that I do, make my case whether I agree with some or disagree and why I think something is what it is. All right. We got two channel norms for this channel. One, we attack points and not people. And two, we don't do all the cussing and derogatory stuff. All right. We leave that up to the, people who enjoy that type of stuff, even though you might be one of those people. Oh, sorry, okay. But you're going to get something way more valuable over here, and that is this good content and information. All right. So today's episode is the real reason why men are single. Now, for those of you that haven't been hiding under a rock, my last episode was the real reason why women are single. Okay. So let's get into my opening statement, right? Without further ado. So, of course, a lot of times people are always like, what about the other side to it? Which in this case, I do feel like the other side of it is very important, right? Men need to understand why women are single, and women need to understand why men are single. So there will be case where you'll see me do two separate videos addressing the man side of it and the woman side of it, right? Because and particularly in this case, are single for different reasons versus women. And of course, with my three pieces of evidence, we're gonna really get into those three general reasons. Just like I did in my last video, I talked about three general reasons why women are single. And I'm going to do the same thing with this episode, three general reasons why men are single. And much like the same last format, I have three different videos, right? Because I think when people talk about these topics, it speaks more. And then that way we can have a conversation based on what we are seeing, the talking points that they're presenting in the videos. But I do want to say this before we continue and move on, that the whole idea of men being single, the reason why it's different for women is because men have a duty and a burden that's placed on their shoulders. And that duty and burden is to protect and provide. And a lot of times, of course, we only think of provision being financial, which of course we know is not. But that in and of itself, provision from a financial standpoint is a huge burden that are placed on men's shoulders. All right. Some men don't want that burden. Some men, that gives them their drive and their purpose. Right. So we have to talk about that. Context matters always, right? So when we having a conversation about why men may be single, like those things play factors, and they're huge factors, right? Because like I said, everybody don't want that burden placed on them. Everybody don't want kids. Everybody don't want to be married. And I know a lot of times you hear all these people in the YouTube streets and social media is the goal for dating should be marriage. The goal should be this. The goal should be that. So one thing we got to understand, and you hear people say all the time, we're not a monolith, which is very true, right? So if we're not a monolith, then we should not be giving people cookie cutting answers, acting like we are a monolith. Makes sense? Makes sense to me. So we want to speak to many audiences, to as many people as we can, to give them realistic, healthy solutions, right? Since we know that everybody is not dating for marriage, since we understands that everybody does not want children, okay? We have to give people healthy solutions if they don't want those things. All right? Because as we state, and now based on your religious affiliation, culture, what have you, you may think things should be the way it is. But one thing you got to understand is everything that I just mentioned is a social construct. Religion is a social construct. Race is a social construct, right? Even the roles we play as far as gender, social construct. So these things are always negotiable. They always change from culture to culture, and they also change throughout the years, meaning they're fluid. So we always got to keep that in mind, right? So in this episode, we're going to focus on the men and why they choose to be single. See, the difference is men do choose because men are the one that get down on one knee. Men are the ones who agree to be in a relationship. All right. Women give access to sex, men get access to relationships and marriage. All right. So a lot of times we definitely are, excuse me, I always forget to cut my ring off. A lot of times we are intentionally not being in a relationship, right? Because we feel like the benefits outweigh the, because I think I mentioned in the last video, we're talking about with men, we're talking about cost versus reward, right? A lot of time that's how we think. And if that's not how we thinking, we should be thinking when it comes to many aspects of our life, right? What is the pros and cons? We have to weigh it. Men think like that. All right. So we're going to be thinking about this from a very logically sound, rational, realistic point of view, why men remain single. All right. So go get your coffee, your Pepsi, or whatever it is you drink, or if it's something stronger, they yak, or I don't know what you drink. Okay. Strap in because, hey, we finna go at it once again, like we always do about this time. All right. So without further ado, let's get into our first piece of evidence, young people. Let's get it.
Men are wondering, like, why aren't men wanting to get married these days? Why are men not even approaching me and talking to me anymore? Why are men checking out completely? Look at the risk reward of getting into a relationship with a woman, potentially for a family and kids. You know, if you want to sleep around and just like hoe it up as a dude, and salute, brother, go handle business. The game ends the same for us.
Is that enough?
Can you find happiness? Can you find happiness and joy? For some men, it's great. But I think every man on a deeper level yearns for a family, yearns for that dream, like a woman that's supportive, nurturing. Women are wondering, like, why aren't men wanting to get married these days? Why are men not even approaching?
So for my piece of evidence, number one, you've seen the video of the reasons, the real reasons why men are single is men love the freedom to be able to kind of move as they please and talk to whoever they want to. Freedom is huge, not just for men, but we understand for men and women, but in particular for men, because I do agree with the video in that, like, and I mentioned the cost versus reward, right? Nowadays, we're talking about in 2024, right? Nowadays, it is very tough for a man because it seems definitely more cost related because we understand that 75 to 80% of the time women are filing for divorce. Women are leaving relationships. So when we objectively look at the numbers, like the risk is just very much high. So why would a guy chance that when he know that it's out of his control? And that's the big thing, right? The reason why we are creating a lot of technology and we're trying to shift weather patterns and stuff like that is we want things to be in our control. All right. So it's literally out of our control if we get with a woman, have kids with that woman, and she could decide at any point that I'm just not for her anymore. Right. And she could take my kids, she could get alimony, child support, and all that. Like, that is a huge risk. That is out here destroying men right now as we speak. Okay. And now you could say, because I hear this all the time, well, lean on faith. And, if you love one another, you shouldn't have to do this and do that. Well, we understand that in reality, right? What does love got to do with it? Okay. Because when it comes down, when a relationship does end, right? Where is the love in court? Where's the love when you discussing where money is going? When you discussing who gonna get the home? All of a sudden, the love is gone, right? So men weigh that, and rightfully so. If you're a smart man, right, you got to weigh all these different things when it comes to getting into a serious relationship, particularly if you want to have kids with somebody, right? That's why it is best to be in the situation. I always say you got to meet family, you got to meet friends, you got to see them angry, right? You got to see how they spend money. It's so many different vetting factors. And I got the video on vetting questions, right? You need to check it out if you haven't. It's so many different factors you have to put in place to even get to a point where you feel comfortable enough to say, okay, yes, I want to be in a relationship. For me, even to get to a point where you want to be in a relationship, let alone marriage, right? So that is a huge factor when it comes to men choosing to be single. It's like, why am I gonna go through all that headache and all that stuff when I could just be to myself and not worrying about having to go through all those negative experience when it comes to breaking up with a woman or getting divorced. All right. So it is a factor. All right. So that is my piece of evidence number one. And it's just only going to get better from here. But we're going to get into our second piece of evidence. Site.
Like, they were getting upset with me because I said I don't date per se. It was like, what you mean? I was like, it costs too much. Like, you trying to be practical and save some money? We gonna be broke. You talking to this shit for 2 months? You done spent about $7,000 if you trying to Atlanta her ass.
Guarantee y'all gonna have at least one date where she go get some lamb chops.
Nah, hey, don't have a date. Like, y'all don't want the brunch, spent $200, whiskey mistress, and spend another $500.
Or y'all pulled up at Pasha for a little night situation.
Little rock steady, you know what I'm saying?
Them prices gonna rock your ass on right. For the life of me, it's just like, that's why in dating, you have to look for somebody who actually cares about you and actually like considers your pockets as well.
I was telling someone, like, they were getting upset with me because I said I don't date per se. They was like, what you mean? I was like, it costs too much. Like, you trying to be practical and save some money? We gonna be broke. You talking to this shit for 2 months? You done spent.
All right. So for my piece of evidence number two of the real reasons why men are single, dating is entirely too expensive, right? Or I should say, being in a relationship is expensive, right? Now, it just makes sense, right? If you're by yourself, you're going to be very reasonable when it comes to your finances. You're going to get the things that you need. And particularly, this is for men. You're going to get the things that you need. And if you can't afford the things that you want, then you're not going to get them. All right. So you're way more subtle and reasonable when it comes to your finances as a man. But there's a lot of men out here that like to trick on women or like to try to impress women, or even if you're not trying to do that, just dating in general, because the financial burden and load has always been on men. I don't think nobody would dispute that, right? So it gets pricey trying to date and be in a relationship. And like the man said in the video, particularly for somebody that really don't care about your pockets and don't care about you like that. All right. Because there are some women out here that literally get you in their phone as food. Like, they literally are messing with you because of what you can provide for them. We understand that that happens, right? So I would suggest because for the women out there that are really saying that, they trying to get to know somebody, it's their character that's important, is this and that. Okay, you have to show me that that's really the case, because it's a lot of talking out here, right? All right. So our beginning dates, we shouldn't be spending a lot of money. We should be going for walks in the park. We should go on coffee. There should be no money or very little money being spent if you're truly, genuinely trying to get to know me and trying to build something. Because we talk all the time about how sex will get in the way if you have it too early, which I agree. But you know another thing that could get in the way if you do it too early is spending a lot of money. See, we don't have that conversation. But of course, we're going to have it on making a case. All right. So for the men out there that's tricking, who just want to spend all this money, you have to understand what you're establishing. You're spoiling somebody, right? And what do a lot of women say? Like, don't show me if you can't maintain it, which actually happen to agree. Why are you going to be doing that? Why are you trying to impress someone when you know you're not going to be able to sustain it throughout the whole relationship? And once again, it get expensive. So real reason why men deciding to stay single is that, man, they can save way more money. Save way more money. And not to mention if you get with somebody who has kids, because that's another factor, right? So other than the reason of you having a kid by another man, right? It's the fact that I'm expected to come in to take care of you and your kids. What do we hear all the time? Well, we are a package deal. Okay. So now as men, we got to ask ourselves, is that package deal going to hurt me or help me? And unfortunately, in most cases, it's going to hurt you. Definitely your pockets. All right. So, and I know there's women out there saying, like, if you broke, just say you broke. Now, it ain't got nothing to do with that. That's just a shaming tactic that be trying to be used. But if you smart, you know, right? Now, it has everything to do with the fact that I earn my money. I work very hard for it. And I get to decide who I want to spend my money on. And just because I don't want to spend it on you and taking you out on $300-$400 dates, that's my choice. But remember, you're trying to get to know me, right? And of course, the video was speaking on like the experience in Atlanta, but that can travel, right? You can talk about New York, Dallas, Houston, Chicago, even in your smallest cities. Shoot, like it's not cheap to go to a nice restaurant. It's not cheap. And who's footing the bill? We already know, right? And a lot of time men are just looking for someone to be considerate of their pockets, right? Because if you're not considerate of my pockets now, what makes you think they're going to be considerate of your pockets later? Now, all of a sudden, a title or a ring is supposed to change your consideration? Come on. Let's be real. All right. So that's the second reasons why, or one of the real reasons why men want to stay single is because you hurting our pockets, baby. All right. Trying to impress you for what? All right. But that's what men got to get smart and men got to understand. Okay. If she really saying it, she rock with you. You got to show me. All right. Let's get into our last piece of evidence to wrap all this on up.
The evolutionary benefit, or is this just a byproduct of solipsism and being the star of a real life movie? I think this is manufactured indignation. Rollo, this is your wheelhouse.
Well, I think, honestly, I think there is an evolutionary need for it anyways. I think right now, as I said before, like how do you make a woman miserable? You give her everything that she's ever wanted. Now, that's like on a personal level. Now, think of that on a meta scale, like in a gynocentric social order where we give women more and more and more convenience, dishwashers, washing machines, women's rights, a right to vote, this, that, and I'm not saying you shouldn't have those things. I'm just saying that we make it easier. It's like men, especially for beta men, for throughout history, their way to sort of solve their reproductive problem has always been to make life as easy as possible for women because they believe in the chore play narrative in a writ large, right? The easier I can make a woman's life, the more time she'll have to bang me, which is like completely opposite. But what happens is like the reason why women need that drama, there's two reasons. The first one is like we've made it too easy for them, and so they're craving that innate need for that. The other thing is that it's part of women's existential fear. So when you watch like shows that are like indignation generating, like say for instance The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, the reason why that show has been around for 25 years is it's professional wrestling for women is what it is. It's like they need that kind of high or that thrill, but you're like, well, why do they need that? Well, the reason is they want to know that hypergamous filter is still functioning. So when women talk about like their the feminine mystique, right? Their women's intuition. They want to know that it still works. So when you see a show like Cheaters or something like that like really stimulates that indignation, or The Bachelorette or The Bachelor or whatever. Exactly. 50 Shades of Grey. Name the thing, that the genre or whatever that women really love, and I will show you every time it stimulates that indignation need, because that indignation need is tied to her ability to filter out the fakes from the real thing. And when we say no, we're the real thing and these are the fakes, and when you make that decision for them, it's like they have to manufacture it for themselves. They like the chemical rush that comes from indignation, because they want to be able to say, ha, this guy's actually a cheater. I found him out. And even if it's like vicariously through other chicks, that's when they still love it. They still get off on it because it stimulates the same thing. So they want to know that they still got it, right? They can still, I can figure this guy out with my intuition. And so that's why indignation is such a big deal to them.
Dude,
that's a red flag too, by the way. You want to stay away from women that like consume that stuff endlessly. You know, the National Enquirer, yes, the fucking Bachelor, the Bachelorette.
They will always love drama, but it's when it's like this constant like addiction need that it becomes.
Well, I don't think you should filter for it like that. I think it's endemic. If a girl is getting excitement in her life, she doesn't go out looking for it. It's like
her drug dealer.
Nobody who has a healthy sex life is addicted to porn. It's the same kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I would argue, if you see a girl who's hooked on this stuff, that's her screaming at the world that she's bored. Mm-hmm. And we always joke, like, what's the thing about game, right? Strong or positive emotions, negative emotions doesn't matter as long as it's strong. So if anything, it's almost like a girl walking out with like a skirt that's 2 inches too high. It's just like a big indication that she's bored. And if you're more entertaining than 80% of guys out there, which is super easy, then you basically got yourself like a kept tiger. Now, hopefully she's aesthetically pleasing. You don't want to do this with a girl you're just not into anyway. But not necessarily. And then in a marriage too, if you see a girl is all of a sudden hooked on serial killer dramas, well then maybe you just.
So you see my last piece of evidence, the real reason why men decide to stay single is a lot of men just do not like the drama and the undesirable things that they either expected to do when they were in a relationship or are asked to do, right? So this video definitely went into more of a nuanced conversation when it comes to the drama. He really broke it down from an evolutionary biological standpoint, which I find interesting. Maybe you don't, but like, so a lot of times I do like to have these conversations where it either come to the historical, educational, or scientific aspect of it, because I think that's just reality, right? So a lot of things we can break it down from a psychological standpoint, a social, or what have you. And so we're going to wrap this up and get into my closing statement and just talk about a little bit about the video that you've seen. I definitely believe that a man has to beware when he's choosing a mate or deciding to get in a relationship about whether or not that woman is asking of him to do things, because that's what friends are for, right? You make friends because you have certain things in common. So you will want your lady to do more things that is typical of females to do with her female friends. Guys do things that are more typical of a guy with their male friends, okay? So it's the undesirable aspect of why men remain single, and it's the drama aspect. We know women love to watch the Real Housewives and the Bachelorette and stuff like that, crime shows, right? And so, which is okay. That's a form of entertainment. But when someone is so enmeshed in that stuff, it takes them out of a realistic standpoint and the focus of what's going on in their life. And it's something, I wouldn't say it's a red flag, but it's definitely something that's a yellow flag and something to look out for. And what do men typically do? Well, instead of dealing with the drama and things that they don't want to do, they just rather remain single. They'd rather be by themselves, right? They get more work done. They keep more money in their pocket. They do what the hell they want to do, all right? And really, that's really the wrap up to this video, okay? Like, Men who are single don't kind of want for a relationship like women do when they're single. And that's why it's so different, right? When it comes to men and women being single. Women are more so will try to justify why they are single with all these different reasons, right? Men are just like, man, I just don't want to deal with it. Like, so it's more simplified, right? Like, and I think it's more justifiable though, if to be honest with you. Because it's not like men don't want to be with women. We definitely love women. But when it comes to the financial aspect, when it comes to what that man could lose, like in a lot of men's eyes, it is not worth the risk. It's just not. So that's why you're seeing marriage on the decline days and single people going up. Okay. Because we're living in times where people are they're not really taking those vows that they're saying very seriously. They're not taking relationship building and sustaining and maintaining a relationship very seriously. All right. We got so many options that it's just easier to leave somebody and start over. But the problem what we're not really addressing is the fact that you think it's greener on the other side, but once you get out of here, you realize you should have stayed where you were. We don't want to put in the work. We don't want to sacrifice and compromise like it used to be done because of social media, technology, different lifestyle, capitalism, feminism. Our sexuality has changed. It's a lot of different factors. All right. So it's not that, and I've heard women say this, that men don't want to commit no more. It's not that they don't want to commit. It's the simple fact that they have a lot to lose because they bear the financial load. All right. Because as much as we're gonna talk about these women getting money and they CEOs and they get into the bag and stuff like this, guess what still haven't changed, even though that has changed. They still not taking on the financial load. And we can talk about specific cases where women are taking care of men, but guess what? They don't stay with those men long term. And they're not attracted to those men that they're taking care of. Not long term. All right. So there you have it. The real reason why men stay single. I hope it makes sense to you. Definitely comment. Let me know what you think about this episode. Of course, you got to subscribe. All right. I see a lot of people checking out the videos, but please subscribe for your boy. Let's get it up because we're trying to do more things with the channel. All right. You already know the links for my books gonna be in the description, the merch, all that good stuff, social media handle. It all be in the description below. But as always, you or me, love always, love eternal. Remember, the worst thing you can do is lie to yourself. And I think